What I want to do today is I want to go ahead and start talking a little bit about using different types of dashboards, how I can create them, and that sort of thing. So, in this case, again, I have a few main topics that I want to go ahead and discuss. The first thing we're going to do, we want to talk a little bit about, what exactly is a dashboard? A lot of people have a lot of varying definitions on how this works. I want to make sure that you understand exactly what's going to happen when you create one of these and give you some ideas as to how all that's going to kind of come together and see how that's going to work. We're also going to spend a little bit of time working with, building out these dashboards. So there are some opportunities that we can go in and work with to make sure that you actually can see a variety of the different tools. And you're going to realize that this is a really easy process to work with. So we're going to kind of go through, give you some opportunities to see how all of that is going to work as we go through this. One of the key things that you need to be able to do to your data in order to get the most out of it is to be able to go ahead and ask questions. And one of the things that you have with dashboards is the ability to use a feature called Q&A. It's a live feature that you can plug in. You can type in on pretty much any dashboard and be able to go ahead and display information that gives you the information that you're looking for in a language that you can understand. Again, there's a lot of different options. We'll give you some opportunities to see how that's going to work. It's one thing for you to be able to go in and get this information so it's in a spot where you can look at it, and that's great. But a lot of times it's not just you that has to rely on this data. There's going to be a lot of times when you have to share this with the quote unquote powers that be so that those people can go in and actually make decisions on the data. Well, we have some opportunities to be able to go ahead and share this information out to make sure that other people are going to be able to see it. Now, there are going to be different processes that you're going to have to follow depending upon who you want to share it with, but we have a lot of different ways that we can kind of go in and get some of that set up. You also have the ability, if you need to be able to show you or to work with live data. So if it's streaming, we have the ability to go ahead and put that into a dashboard as well. I'm going to show you how that's going to work and give you an example of just some very basic data on how that's going to kind of come together, and you'll be able to go ahead and show your data in real time to be able to display that. So like I said, that's kind of what I have on tap for you today. A little bit of information about myself. Like I said, my name is Jeff Tatusco. I am what is referred to as a hybrid instructor here at New Horizons, which basically means, I teach some apps classes like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but I also teach classes obviously like Power BI, but Power Platform, SharePoint, some other different types of things like that. I've been doing this for about 12 years now, so I have a little bit of experience with that. The powers that be like me to let you know that I am a four-time top 20 worldwide instructor in the New Horizons Network. You can take that for what it's worth. And in case you're wondering about my overall mindset, I'm a huge fan of the Muppets. However, I am much more of a classicist. I much prefer the original version rather than the most recent iterations of that have been out recently. But again, that's enough about me. What I'd like to do now is let's go ahead and get started and see what kind of trouble we can get into. Okay. So the first thing I want to do, as I mentioned, let's talk a little bit about what a dashboard is. If you think about it, when you're trying, the first thing that you think of, or the first thing a lot of people think of when you hear the term dashboard, you don't necessarily think about data right away, right? You think about your car. When you see your dashboard, what kind of information is all on there? We have your speedometer, you have your tachometer, you have your gas gauge, you have your battery information. You probably have, with these days, all kinds of other types of information that can show up on there. Now, that's all well and good. Again, it gives you a safe place to be able to go in and find all of your information, and that's fantastic. But having said that, if you need to search for the information, it's really not going to be quite as helpful. If you're driving down the highway and you think, I really need to go in and figure out how fast I'm going. Okay, I'm driving along. Okay, let's see here. Here's my battery. Here's my fuel gauge. Here's my tachometer. Here's this. Oh, okay, it says I'm doing 70 miles an hour. At least that's what I tell my wife. But anyway, okay, so now I pick my eyes back up and I'm off the road because I don't have time to go in and spend that much time trying to figure that out. Yes, I know where I'm looking, but I need something that I can grab at a quick glance and be able to see that information and get my eyes back on the road. Well, that's kind of the concept of what we want to be able to do with a dashboard. We want to put as much information in there as we can so that we can go ahead and display as much information as going to be available. It's got to be something that's going to show up really, really quickly to be able to see that. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be just one kind of data. There can be a lot of different types of information that you can go ahead and work with to be able to go ahead and display all the data that you need in that regard. So again, you think about your car, yeah, you have your gas gauge so that you don't run out of gas. You have your battery gauge so that you know that you're not going to, car's not going to die on the road. You have your tachometer to make sure you're not revving the engine too high. You have your speedometer to make sure you're not going to get pulled over because you're driving too fast. There's a lot of different types of information. You think about the other types of data that you have to work with on a regular basis. And it's really going to be the concept of making sure that you're getting all the right information. We're going to be creating a variety of, or I'm going to show you a couple of different reports in here. All of those reports are going to have a certain type of information that you're going to have to work with. Now, you can pull from a variety of different reports. You can pull from a variety of different data sets to be able to go ahead and kind of work with a variety of data to make sure you're getting the story across. Remember, if you're thinking about data analysis, the overall concept is to be able to get a story across. And if you think of a report as a story where every page is a part of the story, the dashboard might be the front cover where you're going in there and saying, here's the highlights. And now you have all of that information in a quick, easy to access area to be able to go ahead and display all that. As I've mentioned, it's not just enough for you to be able to have the information for yourself. You're going to want to be able to go in and share that information with the other people inside of your company. So again, the powers that be are going to be the ones that have to make decisions based off of the data. They don't have time to look up all the data themselves. That's what you're doing. But if you can get that information out to them, now you have the ability to go ahead and be able to make sure that they have all the right data. They have all the most up-to-date information that's going to be at their fingertips. So they don't really have to go in and do a lot of searching. They can go ahead and find a variety of different tools and be able to see that. So if you think about it, this is just a quick example of a dashboard that I created that's got all kinds of different information there that's going to be set up in there. Sometimes it's just a number, like you see a lot of times with the dashboards these days, it'll actually give you the speed as a number as opposed to the dial. They might have both too, but sometimes that number is going to be the most important thing. Well, the same concept holds here. Sometimes a number is the most important information that you need. You can put numbers on here, you can put visuals in here. There's all kinds of different options that are going to be associated with this that you can go ahead and use to make sure you're getting the point across and be able to work with all this. Now, there's a couple of things that I do want to go ahead and make sure that everybody understands with this. With Power BI defines a dashboard as a specific object. In other words, it's something that's built in the Power BI service. In other words, it's the online component of Power BI. So that you can go in, you can pull that information up and go in there, log in, be able to access all of your information. So you can create that dashboard from there. Some people will say, well, I use the Power BI report server, and that's great. Okay. Having said that, the Power BI report server does not have the different components that you will see when you start working with dashboards like in the Power BI service. Okay. A typical dashboard that you might create there might just be a page of different components that you can go ahead and work with and different features that are going to be available, but it's not going to be the same as like the dashboard in the Power BI service. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. So as you go in here, you're going to be able to see a lot of different tools and how that's going to be kind of built together. So this, like I said, is just a quick example, and I'll show you this dashboard here in a few minutes on how that's going to work. By the way, just to let you know, I will try and stop a couple of times here for questions throughout the session today. If I don't get to you, I promise I will leave time at the end. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so the first thing that we want to be able to go ahead and do is we want to look at, what is a dashboard. We've kind of got a better idea as to how that's going to work. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to go in and start using some different options to be able to go ahead and start building these. And when you start working with a dashboard, the basic building block that you're going to see is what's referred to as a tile. And it's basically any kind of visual that's going to be set up that's going to I'll give a quick highlight of your story. So if you think about it, you need to give some kind of data that's going to get part of your story across. That might be a number, as I mentioned before. It might be a column chart. It might be a map. There might be all kinds of other visuals that you could go ahead and incorporate. There's a lot of different tools that you can go ahead and build in to make sure that you're going to be able to go ahead and display the information that you want. These tiles are geared to be read only. So when you go in here, remember, a dashboard, it's just a quick glimpse. So it's not something that you're going to really study and look through. If you need to be able to access all of that information, well, then you have the ability to simply click on one of those tiles. And then what it will do is it will take you to the report where that tile came from. And now you can go in, you can study the information a little bit more. You can get that detail. So like I said, if the dashboard is the highlights, the report is going to give you the detail for the story so that you can go ahead and understand how that's going to work. One of the really nice things about this, there are going to be times when you're creating a specific report here in Power BI that you want to be able to say, okay, I need to have this information or this information or this information basically set up. But there are going to be times where you might have some other report that's set up that has something a little bit different, but it's very, very relatable to the data that you want to use. That's one of the beauties that you have with dashboards is the fact that now you can pull data from multiple reports. You can pull data from even multiple data sets to be able to go ahead and display it on one page. And it's going to allow you to go ahead and tell the story from a variety of different perspectives and still get all that information basically set up. Now, dashboards wouldn't be all that terribly helpful if they were really hard to create. You're going to see that the tiles that you're going to be working with here are very, very easy to go in and create on for your dashboards. Basically, it's a matter of pinning them from your report, and you'll be able to go in there and add that information really, really quickly, and you can see how that's all going to kind of come together. Having said that, what happens if I have a page that has a series of visuals that I think, this is exactly what I need. I don't have to go in and pin a variety of different tools. Well, Power BI gives you the opportunity to go in and use the entire page as a dashboard. So now you can make things a little bit even, set it up so that they're going to be not only available and you can add them all at once because it makes it really easy to add in that case, but then also you have the ability to make that interactive. I mentioned before that, like I said, these tiles are designed to be read only. But if you want, as I mentioned, you could actually create a dashboard that's going to be interactive so that now people can go in and they can understand a variety of different tools. Additionally, you're going to see that there's going to be a variety of different tools that you can go ahead and use to be able to work with this. So for example, yeah, you obviously have the ability to, there's a file tab up there. So you can go ahead and you can manage permissions that are going to be associated with it. We're going to talk a little bit about sharing and being able to go ahead and use something along those lines. If you need to be able to go ahead and communicate with your team, well, guess what? There's a section here where you could chat about this in Teams, and it makes it really easy to go ahead and collaborate to make sure everybody understands and make sure everybody's on the same page for this. So there's different opportunities there to be able to see how that's going to work. If you want to be able to go ahead and put comments, speaking of collaboration, you can put comments on there, whether it's going to be something like, hey, you know what, this tile doesn't really make a lot of sense here. Or maybe this section doesn't really match up here. Or, hey, wow, that really brings everything together here. There's different ways to go ahead and comment on this. Again, the key to this is to be able to collaborate. Now, let's face it, when you think about it, there are going to be times when you might want to be able to update or go be updated on different items. And yeah, I mean, you want to be able to go ahead and find that out, but you don't necessarily want to have to remember, okay, I'm going to have to remember to log in at this time and this information and be able to pull that up. Well, you can subscribe to a dashboard, and that way you can go in and say, hey, here's the updated dashboard with all the most up-to-date information. You can see exactly what's going on with it. And now once you get that created, it's going to come through on a, they have it set up on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and that way all your information is going to be set up there. If you need to be able to edit it, if you want to add tiles, sure, you can go in there, you can add tiles as well. There's all kinds of different options that are going to be available. So let me give you an example of something that you're going to see on how this is going to work. So let me go ahead and pull this up here. Here, for example, is that dashboard that I was talking about before. So when you look at some of this information, again, there's a lot of different things going on. But you think about some of the most important data that you're going to be working with, and you want to be able to get to it. So, for example, this is information based on enrollments for different classes that we've run. And again, this is a little bit outdated information. I haven't really updated it recently, but you can go in and get a better idea as to what's going on. So, for example, you'll see that, hey, the first thing I see up at the top, if I'm looking for enrollments, I want to know how many enrollments there are. Boom, right there at the very top left, it tells me how many students have been enrolled over a certain amount of time. What's the average enrollment? How many classes have we run? Okay. If I want to be able to go in here and find some of this information, well, then guess what? I can simply go and get a little bit more detail. For example, you'll see this one, it says class type. If I go ahead and click on it, what it's going to do is it's actually going to take me directly to that report so that now I can say, oh, yeah, okay, this information, here's that pie chart. I can go ahead and look at all of this information and get a better idea as to what's going on, depending upon what kind of data is going to be associated with these. So I can simply point to a variety of different tools here and get some better ideas as to how this is all going to kind of come together. Some of the other numbers, depending upon where they are, again, these are a little bit outdated, but you can go and get a better idea as to how I can go in here and work with those. Power BI, it used to be a little bit more difficult to kind of bounce back and forth between your reports uh, and your dashboards and that sort of thing. But nowadays, it's really easy because you notice if I open up a dashboard or a report, it actually shows up over here on the left-hand side. So I can simply click in my on where it says the class statistics dashboard. Here it is. Here's all my data, and I can go ahead and access all of the information there. And like I said, this is going to give you some opportunities to see this. Now, another nice thing about this, you see my little fish tank here there in the middle. Okay. These are somewhat interactive in the sense that if you think about what you're working with in Power BI, you could simply point to a data point a lot of times, and it will give you some information. So if I point to a data point, you'll see that it gives you what's called a tooltip, and it automatically shows that information right away. Well, if I come up here on my little fish, I can simply point to them and say, hey, there's a type of class that we have. There's the average enrollment. Boom, it shows up right away. So even though I might not necessarily see all of the detail in my dashboard, I can use this and get a little bit more information without having to go in and create everything from scratch. So there's a lot of different tools here that you can go ahead and work with. Now, if I want to be able to go in here and work with something like this, I'm going to come over here and open up my workspace. And remember, a workspace is really just a container that's going to house different reports, dashboards, and also any kind of data sets that are going to be associated with them. You'll see here, anything that's highlighted with a blue tile on the left-hand side is a report. The orange tile with a cylinder in it is a dashboard. The uh, teal colored tile with kind of like a little speedometer in it, that's a dashboard. Right, so you can go in there, you can see some other options. There's even also options for metrics down below where you can create scorecards and be able to display that information. So let's say that I want to be able to go in and create a quick dashboard based off of some specific information. What I'll do is I'll come in and I'll just go ahead and choose this class stats report. Now, remember, with reports, each page can have a series of different visuals associated with them. So you can simply click on any visual and be able to go ahead and display that. If I come up here and I click on the VDP NH Central classes, once again, it's just showing me a variety of different types of information that I want to be able to go ahead and display. Now, remember, I said before that if there is some general information that's really, really important, I need to see that right away. Well, if I come down below here, you'll notice that I have, like I said, student enrollment. Now, you'll notice it's going to give you some different buttons up above here. Okay. If I want to be able to take this number and I want to add it into a dashboard, all I have to do is click on that little push pin here and I click pin visual. Now, once I do this, there it goes. It's going to bring up a new section. Now, I could actually add this directly to an existing dashboard, or if I want to create a new dashboard, I can simply click new dashboard, give it a name. I'll call this webinar dashboard, click pin. Lo and behold, you'll notice that over here it says it automatically pops it up. I can simply click go to dashboard. There it is. There's my tile. Okay. And it automatically brings me to that information that I can go ahead and work with. So now if I want to be able to go ahead and add another piece of information, maybe I think, okay, well, I have the tile there. I want to be able to see what our average enrollment is. Okay, same thing. Point here, pin visual. And now, again, existing dashboard, I can just click the drop down, choose webinar dashboard, pin, and it's going to be on there as well. If I decide that I want to go ahead and add a visual, I can simply go in here, click on a specific visual. So this chart right here, this is showing me the top classes that we run on a regular basis and the average enrollment associated with them. Okay, yeah, that's going to be kind of important to be able to know. Probably want to click on that and pin it as well. Simply click it, pin it, boom, there it is. And if I want to be able to see what it looks like, now it's adding all of these different features in here to be able to set this up. If I want to take this tile and move it around, I can simply drag it over here and I can organize these. Now, the tiles are going to allow you to resize them, but it's not going to be like just a customized size for each one. You'll actually have them lined up so they're going to show just the right kind of information, just the right spacing to be able to work with these. So in this case, you have these two tiles that are basically the same. This would be basically 4 of these individual tiles. So you can go in, you can kind of space these out, you can set them up and be able to display all of your information in that regard. If I come back into my report, once again, there's all kinds of different options that I can go ahead and plug in. Some of these are going to not necessarily be quite as helpful because like there's a timeline that I have up here. Well, remember, these visuals are basically going to be set up so that in a dashboard, they're not going to be, you're not going to go in and use them all, but you can go in, you can add these different types of options in here. If I want to come down and choose top enrollments, okay, here's another one. I'll just simply come in here, point to it, pin it, come in, there's my dashboard. Okay. So I have my information. And once again, now in this case, if I want to spread this out a little bit more, I can drag it down and it widens it out a little bit more. Right. And as I mentioned before, if I want to be able to go into another one, let's say I'll go into this, I'm just going to go in here really quickly and I'm going to come over on the right hand side. Come on, there we go. And here's my fish tank. So now, again, this was from last year, but I can go ahead and click on a specific area. There we go. And now I can go in and just simply pin this one to my dashboard as well. And it's still, again, this is a completely different report from a completely different data set. So now I can come in here and pin that to that webinar dashboard. And now I have another completely different piece of information to tell the story of how this is all coming together. All right. Now, one other option that I wanted to go that I've already mentioned, but I'm going to go ahead and show you again here. I'm going to go ahead and close a couple of these down really quickly. Okay. Let's say, for example, that I'm going to go back here, go back to my workspace, and I'm going to come back to my class stats report here. Okay. Now, once again, this is going to show me a lot of information. And typically when you start working with these different items, these are all going to be interactive in the report itself. So if I click on a specific pie piece, you can see that it automatically shows that information related to it. Same thing over here. If I click on this, it shows all the information related to it, and it makes the whole thing interactive. Well, like I said, dashboards typically aren't set like that. But what if I say, this is perfect. I don't want to have to go in and do anything else. Well, all I have to do is I can come up here, click edit, Actually, scratch that. I didn't want to edit this because I wanted to be able to go in here and show you this information again. Let me go back in here really quickly and pull this back up again. There we go. Sorry about that. Rather than clicking edit, I actually wanted to click the three dots next to the word edit, that ellipsis up here. And you'll notice once I do this, there we go. If I do this, you'll see an option that shows up here that says pin to a dashboard. So now I can take this entire page and I can make it basically a live dashboard. So if I create a new dashboard, call it live page dashboard, now I can click pin live. If I click on the go to dashboard now, this is a dashboard. So I can go in here and I can work with this. And if I want to be able to see data from a specific time frame, I can go in here. It's interactive just like it was before. And I can go ahead and click on any of these items and be able to go ahead and display that. That's a quick option to be able to go ahead and display your information if you have a page that's already built in and you want people to be able to go ahead and interact with it. Okay, let me go ahead and stop here really quickly. First off, let me see, got a couple of questions in here. When I said, do I mean data set? There are, yeah, I mean, you can go in and you can use the data sets. If I misspoke there, I very well may have. But yeah, typically the data set is going to be the underlying data that you can go ahead and work with to be able to display, to create your different reports. So if I misspoke, I sincerely apologize. Does my workspace link with SharePoint documents and other locations? Do you need to save a copy to that folder? So the My Workspace link, you can work with different types of SharePoint documents. Again, if you store a file in SharePoint, that's fine. You can access it and kind of work from there. But understand that if you're going to pull data in from a work or into SharePoint, what you're really doing is you're creating the report typically in the Power BI desktop app. Okay. Now, even if you store that in a SharePoint library or something along those lines, you still have access to all of the information. This is going to operate independently from that. So if you want to be able to, once you store the report in that file, you can then go in, if you like, you could say, okay, I want to publish this up to the Power BI service. And if you publish it up to the service, then yes, you can go ahead and store it just in your workspace. And the My Workspace area is kind of a private area that only would show the report from there. So hopefully that answers your question there, Richard, to give you some opportunities to see that. All right. So yeah, you do have the ability to kind of go in there and use that. Do you need to save a copy to that folder? No. I mean, you can go in there, like I said, once you publish it from SharePoint or wherever you store it from, once you publish it up to the Power BI service, you can put it in the My Workspace area. You can put it into another workspace that might have been created up on the Power BI service. There's all kinds of different options where you can store it. So the location of where it's being stored on your computer or online, yeah, that doesn't really matter. How do updates work if source document is populated with new data? So Richard, you have the ability to take those data sets. Remember, the data sets is what's really being updated in the underground or in the background. So what's going to happen is as that information gets updated, you'll be able to go ahead and work with that. And that information can be scheduled. So those updates can be scheduled to happen, throughout the day. Depending upon the type of licensing you have, you might be able to go in there and have it run maybe once a day, maybe a few times a day. With the right license, theoretically, you could have it update up to 48 times a day. Right. I don't know that you necessarily need to do that, but yeah, it will and you can have that scheduled in the background. So it's automatically going to be in there. Okay. What's the benefit of saving a whole published report as a dashboard over just sharing the report as is? Again, and I apologize. Hang on one second here. Yeah. So Jana, basically the benefit of this is going to give you the opportunity to be able to just give the quick highlights. Okay. You're going to be able to publish both of these. But if somebody needs just a quick glance at the information really quickly without having to go in and study all the information, that's the reason why you might want to be able to go ahead and use a dashboard there. Okay. So like I said, it's a quick heads up to be able to go ahead and display that information. Okay. Okay. Another one of the more important features that you have with Power BI dashboards is the ability to go in and ask questions about it. Okay. And the way that you can go ahead and use that is by using a feature called the Q&A. Now, the Q&A is a little section that can show up at the top of every dashboard. It's actually even something that you could add into your reports, but it's built in by default on any dashboard that you create. What this is going to do is it's going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and type your question in what they call a natural language query. What exactly does natural language query mean? Basically, it gives you the opportunity to type it in your own words so that you can go ahead and type in the search items that are going to be associated with this. So, for example, you might type in something to the effect of what were total sales in 2022, and it can automatically bring up an answer. Okay. Or in my case, what was the average enrollment for a specific type of class? I can go ahead and get something along those lines, and I can get an answer that will show up. Or maybe I want to say, let's say top 10 uh, populous classes or something along those lines. There's all kinds of different options that you can go ahead and incorporate to be able to see this. Okay, hang on one second here. Okay. When you save to SharePoint, does it show only the date at that particular time, and you can go back to check the data at that particular time? You can also schedule the sync and have it update to check 1 to check 2. So you can go in here. Like I said, you could schedule all of that information and be able to display those different types of data. But you, like I said, it will automatically update as your data is updating, depending upon where your data is stored. For example, if you have your underlying data set, like an Excel spreadsheet stored in a SharePoint file, okay, as that Excel spreadsheet gets updated, it will automatically upload so that you can access that information. It's going to automatically update. So you can go in there and you can refresh it. Once you get that information, and there will be areas where you can go in and you can look at that and say, for example, if I go ahead and pull this back up here really quickly, okay, you'll notice that there's a section over here that will say when it was last refreshed. So you'll be able to log in directly to your Power BI service and you'll be able to see that right from there. And like I said, you can go ahead and schedule that to be able to have that information updated as well. Okay. Okay. Anyhow, getting back to my Q&A here, you wanted to see if you can get freeze data on the constantly updating data. Getting a freeze data type of thing, that's going to be a little bit tougher. You may have to go in and create what's called a bookmark in the report to be able to do something like that. And that would be able to kind of go in and show you that information. But that's basically going to be an option where you'd have to go in and make sure your data is updated in that regard. That's not something typically you do in dashboards, though. Okay. Once you get these Q&A or these questions that are going to be set up there, it's really nice because not only do you have the ability to ask the questions about the data, but you can go in there and you can actually add the results to your dashboards. So even if you go in and say top 5 most populous classes, it might show you a number, or it might show you a table or a chart or something along those lines. You can even go in there and say top 10 most populous classes as a column chart. And once you type that information in, it can say, okay, here's a column chart, shows the top 10 classes, and there you go. And then you'll have a button that you can simply click to say, hey, I want to add that to my dashboard. And now it's going to make it a whole lot easier to be able to go ahead and display that information and get everything out to everybody. Okay. There's, like I said, there's going to be a series of different tools that you can go ahead and incorporate. So when you type in a question, even once you open up the Q&A, what's going to happen is up at the top of the page, you're going to see a series of different tiles. Each one of those tiles has a question that Power BI has kind of looked at your data and used AI to say, hey, wait a second, this is information they might want to know about. Why not just go ahead and give them the question? You could click on the tile and it will automatically pop up a result. Okay, so you can go in there and work with that. Now, having said that, sometimes, yeah, Power BI has it does have the ability to go ahead and find a variety of different results from that. Having said that, if you know that there's going to be a question that people are going to ask over and over and over again, you can actually create that tile for them. And then as soon as they open up the Q&A, all they have to do is click that tile and they get the information. So it automatically creates something along those lines. This is basically something that it's going to look like. So you'll have the question, and you'll see the different tiles that are going to show up to be able to go ahead and display that. Let me go ahead and pull this back up here really quickly and give you a better idea. So if I come in here, let me go back in here under my, let's go back in. Actually, that's not the one I wanted. Let me go and pull this back up here. There we go. So if I come in here and I want to be able to go ahead and use the class statistics dashboard, okay? So now I'm trying to find out, what kind of information is going to be associated with this and what kind of data I need to be able to get. Now, again, maybe I don't have a lot of time. Yeah, I could go ahead and click on some of these different tiles. It would take me to the reports, and then I could kind of play around and investigate. But if I know what I want, I can simply come up here and click up at the top left where it says, ask a question about your data. Once I do this, now you can see it actually brings up a series of different options that I could go ahead and look at to be able to understand, what's going on. So if I want to be able to see total enrollment for the last year, I can simply click that tile. Okay. And again, if I had that information updated, right now it's not going to show me anything because I haven't really updated it in the past year. But if I want to come in, let's say total enrollment for IFPO category, there it is. Boom, there's a column chart. Every single category of classes that we have, they're listed right here. And again, I can point to them. It'll show me the total enrollment for each type of class throughout however long I go in here and find that. Now, if I want to say that, let's say I want to add to this for 2021. Okay, boom. Now I have the same results. It's just going to show the information for that year as opposed to that how that information is going to be set up otherwise. Now, if I want to go in and say as a pie chart, okay, there it is. It shows it as a pie chart as opposed to as a column chart. Now I'm going to take that back out of there because that's a little bit convoluted for a pie chart. So I have this information. Now, having said that, I have my total enrollment for 2021. This is a really important piece of information. It might be useful for other people to be able to see this. Well, what I can do now is I can come up to the very top right, and you see that there's a button up here that says Pin Visual. And if I click that, hey, guess what? It's basically the exact same thing that I had before. So I click Webinar Dashboard and click Pin. Now I can go to this dashboard. And just like that, here's my little chart that I just created using the Q&A. So it makes it really easy to simply go in, find the information, type in the data that you want. One thing I will tell you about this is that internally, when you're creating your report, if you go in, some people look at metadata and they think about some of the different properties that are associated with, different files, and they think their eyes start glazing over because they don't want to have to think about it. But one of the features that you have with the properties in your reports is a feature called synonyms. Okay. So if you think about it, if you have offices around the country or even around the world, people refer to the same thing in different ways. Okay. For example, if you think about it, I know my model's kind of it's kind of shrunk up here. Okay. But if you see what I was drinking out of this, okay, some people call it soda, some people call it pop, some people call it Pepsi. Okay. Some people will generically call it Coke, soda pop. There's all kinds of different names for the same thing. And that's one of the things you might want to think about adding in. So if you add in synonyms for your different field names in your report, what will happen is you'll get a better idea as to how you can go in there and say, hey, somebody in this part of the country refers to it as this. Somebody else refers to it as this. They can type both of those same things in. And if you have them set up in synonyms, they'll get the same results. Okay. So you have some different opportunities to be able to kind of go in and display that information. So the Q&A, like I said, is a really, really handy tool. And as I mentioned, if I come in here, let's say I come back into my workspace and I want to be able to go ahead and see the settings that are going to be associated with that. Actually, so I can come in here and I can find some of these different options. If I come under my class stats report and I come down and I choose my settings, okay, there are going to be a variety of different settings that I can go ahead and work with and be able to go ahead and display and get everything set up. Now, if I want to be able to go to the data set and go to the settings, okay, now you'll see that down below here, not only is there a section for Q&A where you could feasibly turn that off if you wanted to, but then you also see a section that says featured Q&A questions. So if I want to expand this, I could come in and I could click add a question, okay? And I could type in something like, I don't know, total enrollment for all 2021 classes, okay? Then I could go ahead and apply that. Now, anytime I want to be able to go ahead and use one of those dashboards, that's going to show up as one of those tiles that will automatically show all of the information, right? So there's a lot of different information that you can go in and be able to display your data and see how that's going to kind of come together. Okay. All right. Once you start getting all this information, by the way, what kind of questions, again, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and throw them in the chat window. I have no problem with that. Like I said, I'm trying to kind of keep my eyes on it, and we'll kind of go from there. All right. The next thing I want to go ahead and talk about, when we start working with some of this information, you're going to see that, yes, you want to be able to go ahead and incorporate all this, and there's a lot of different types of data in here. But like I said, it's not just a matter of saying, hey, you have this kind of information. That's great. We need to make sure that the powers that be are going to have access to that data as well. So what can we do? Well, the sharing process that you're going to use is somewhat similar to the sharing process that you see in other programs associated with Microsoft 365. If you think about it, you can go in and you could say, okay, I want to be able to share this information with different people, and I want to be able to say, these groups have access to all of the data. Well, once again, you can go ahead and share that information out. Not only can you share it, but you can kind of choose what kind of permissions people are going to have on the dashboard itself to be able to say, yes, maybe they can actually not only create the information, but then maybe they could go in there and create their own reports to be able to use all that data and see what's going on. Now, I want you to understand something. In order for you to be able to go ahead and work with Power BI and really share it out with most of the people in your company, the people that are going to be using it need to have access to a license. Okay. Now, Power BI by itself, you can go in and you can actually create a dashboard using Power BI for free. Okay. You could go in, you could actually go in. All you need really is a Microsoft account. So if you create a Microsoft account for free, you could then download Power BI onto your computer, create a report, save it. You could then publish it up. Now you can only publish it to the My Workspace area. Okay, you can't create other workspaces, but you can have that My Workspace area, and then you can go ahead and you create your dashboards from there. Now, having said that, if you have a license that's going to be set up, everybody that you need to be able to access this information needs to have at least a pro license for SharePoint for Power BI, not SharePoint. For Power BI, you're going to be able to go ahead and share that information. And again, there's different pricing that's going to be associated with. There's a pro license. I mean, there are some companies that set up premium licensing where you can do all kind of wild and crazy things. But as long as you have a pro license, you'll have the ability to go ahead and share that information out to be able to display those. Now, what if you need to be able to get this out to your customers? You want to be able to go ahead and display, hey, here are some figures for a financial company that we're working with, and the customers need to be able to see how different components of that are working. Well, you can actually go in and you can print out dashboards to be able to go ahead and display the information on a basis. Then you can go ahead and send that information out to anybody. So you can go in there, you can find that information, use it there. Okay, if you publish a dashboard and, hang on one second here, using a license and the license later expires, will people still be able to access the dashboard? The dashboard will still be accessible. It's just that if your license expires, you won't be able to access it that way. Right. So you won't be able to go in there and you really be able to do much with it. If the overall Power BI license expires, so everybody's license expires, then it's going to go away and you won't have access to it at that point. But yeah, that's a good, it's a good question. You're going to be able to kind of go in and do something along those lines. Okay. As I mentioned, you can go in and you can print these out to different companies. So if you, like I said, if you want to print it, you could then email that to different locations to be able to set that up. So it basically looks something like this, so that you can go in, you can access some of the information there. Again, the window pops up. This in setup allows you to go and share that dashboard. It also allows them to share the dashboard with other people. You're going to want to be careful with that. If you allow them to be able to share that information out with others, you may not necessarily want that. So you're going to want to be careful whether they can do that. Additionally, you see that there's an option there where they could actually go in and build content, so they could build their own dashboard with the data sets that you've actually built to create this report, so, or this dashboard. So you can go in there, you can see those. And also they can receive an email to say, hey, congratulations, this person just shared this report with you. Now you can go in and you can access all of that. So you have some opportunities, like I said, to be able to go ahead and plug that information in and see how that's going to work. So if I come in here, let's say I go ahead and open up this market analysis dashboard, and this is something that we use for some of our classes here. Now I decide that I want to go ahead and share this out. Can you set multiple owners who can designate access? Yeah, you can go ahead and you can get that set up so that you can provide different levels of permissions for different people. If you notice up here at the file tab, there's an option where I can click manage permissions, and I can go in and I can actually pick and choose. So I can add users here, and then I can go in and I can use that data and be able to display it that way. So yes, you can go in there, you can find that information and be able to go ahead and display it there. Okay. So if I come up here and I click share, make sure I didn't miss a question here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Once again, if I want to be able to go ahead and add this in, now I'm just using kind of like a trial Microsoft account here. So if I go in and let's say I want to add this to student 01, okay, I can go ahead and share this out. And now it's going to automatically say, yes, I can go ahead and use that. If I want that person to be able to share it out with people, other people in the company, then yes, I could go ahead and check that or uncheck it depending upon what I need them to do. Okay. If I don't want them to be able to go ahead and access that information, well, then I can just shut that off as well. And then they're only really going to be able to use the dashboard, and they'll still be able to click on the different reports. They'll still be able to kind of go in and see all the other kinds of information that's going to be associated with that. Okay. Can you add permissions so that some users can only see some of the information, others will only see their information? Carol, that's not something that's done in the dashboard per se, but that's a feature called row level security that's associated with Power BI. So for example, if you have people in individual departments, you could set that up so that people would only be able to see the information associated with their department. But that's something that it's actually done in combination with Power BI Desktop and the Power BI service. But yes, to answer your question, you can do that. Okay. So now if I want to come in here, I can simply click grant access. And now student 1 would have access to this report. That person would be able to go in, pull that information up and do it. And that's how easy it is to go ahead and share this information out. You can go ahead and work with that data and be able to display this. Now, another thing that you can go ahead and do, if I come in here under my sales analysis, okay, if I want to be able to go ahead and create an app out of this, and an app is basically a combination of different options so that you can go back and forth between your reports and dashboards. So if I click create an app up here, sure, I can come in and just call it sales analysis. I have to give it a description. So sales reports and dashboards, you can put in whatever kind of information you need here. I just don't want to take too much time doing that. You can go in, you could choose who the app publisher is going to be, items that you can access, and also you could show specific individuals or groups, so you could go ahead and share the information out. Then if I come down here and click add content, now I can simply come in here and choose whether I want to be able to add different reports. So I can go ahead and add this, and we'll just choose this report here, click add. Now that's going to be set up to be able to display this. Now, if I want to add audience, I could actually set this up so that maybe there are going to be specific users that are going to see the app, or I could go ahead and share it with the entire organization just by simply clicking a button. And now once I do something like this, I can go ahead and click publish app and click publish. Sometimes it says it takes a little while. I don't really have that many people. But now if I click go to app, that's going to give me all of the information related to my report here. So I'll not only be able to see the report, but I'll be able to see the different pages for the report. If I want to see a dashboard, I can click the dashboard here. And once again, I can see the information. Remember, this is actually going to be set up. I pinned this as a live page. So if I click this, now I can get a little bit more data on the different components and how they all kind of come together. But all this data is now going to be basically set up where I can go ahead and work with a variety of different tools there and use the app to be able to kind of pull that information together. Like I said, just a variety of different ways to be able to kind of plug that information in and see how that's going to work. So let me come back up here. Let me go back to Power BI again. What kind of question? What other kind of questions do we have on this while I'm pulling this up? Okay. Right. Okay. One other thing I want to go ahead and show you with this. Okay. Sometimes you may need to see data in real time. If you have a series of different sensors that are constantly showing information, you may need to be able to go ahead and display that and have it visible in real time. Well, Power BI gives you the opportunity to go ahead and create dashboards with live streaming data so that you can see it, like I said, in real time. There's a variety of different options that are associated with these. Now, there's 3 different types of real-time data sets that you can go ahead and incorporate when you're setting something like this up. Okay. The first type is what's referred to as a push data set. Basically, the data is going to be pushed into the Power BI service, and it actually creates a database up in the Power BI service to go ahead and store all the information. So then from there, once that information is pushed in, now it's automatically going to be able to go and access all of that data, and you can then create reports, you can create dashboards, you can do whatever you need to. Now, the quote unquote streaming data is basically a situation where you have information coming in constantly, like every second or even faster than that. You don't necessarily, if you start trying to store that kind of information, it's going to get bogged down really, really quickly because you're not going to have enough space to be able to go and store all of that. In this case, what you can do is you can create a steaming or streaming data set so that now it's kind of pushing all the data in, except there's no back end to actually house all that data. So you're going to be able to store or you're going to be able to display all the information, but once it's gone, it's gone. You're not really going to be able to go ahead and work with that. Now, there's a third type, basically, that you can access using what's called a sector or an area called PubNub. Okay. And basically what that does, it uses an SDK to actually read that information from the data stream. It's basically the same thing as a streaming data set. It's just reading it from a specific type of site. So you can go in there, same thing. It's not going to store any of the data. It's automatically just going to go ahead and pull that information across and be able to see how that's going to work. As I mentioned, you can't really create reports based off of either streaming data sets or a PubNub type of streaming. The only thing you can do is you can create tiles to be able to go ahead and display that, right? But then when you create the tiles for a dashboard, now it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to go to display how that's all going to kind of come together and see how that's going to work. So if I come in here, let me go back in and pull this back up again. Okay. So this is an example of a streaming data set. Okay. This I actually pulled in from PubNub to be able to go ahead and display some information on a dashboard. Now, this is just general information about the computer. So it's showing all the information here. Everything is live. You can see it's going straight across. It will display all of the information for basically about a minute or so. Okay. Once that minute expires, it's going to go off the screen. It's not going to be there anymore. So you have some different opportunities to add this in. Now, if I want to add a tile to this, I can simply come up here and click edit, click add a tile. And now, again, you could add from web content, you can add a picture, text boxes, video, or in this case, if I want to be able to go ahead and use custom streaming data, I can click that and click next. Now it's going to say, okay, where do I want to pull this from? So I'm just going to pull this from my PubNub demo to be able to display this. I'll click next. Now it's going to ask you, okay, well, what kind of visual do you want to create? You can see that we can create cards, line charts, bar charts, column charts, gauges, if we want to be able to kind of go ahead and use something along those lines. If I want to be able to go ahead and use a gauge, once again, if I want to add a value, I can simply come in here and choose, let's say, I don't know, humidity or something like that. Okay. If I want a minimum value, maybe the minimum value is going to be something like, I don't know, If I had a column, I could go ahead and use something along those lines. If I wanted to have a target value, again, same kind of thing, I could add all this information in. But you'll notice I didn't even actually really add anything. It's just automatically showing that data right up here. If I decided that I wanted to show that as a column chart, well, basically it's going to do the same thing as long as I add a timestamp. And then if I come in here for my values and I go ahead and add temperature, okay, once again, it's basically showing all that information up above here. It's not, they're all pretty much the same, so that's not really quite as useful, but you can get a better idea as to how all this information comes together. And like I said, sometimes the most important data that you're looking for is just simply a number. So if I click radiation level, it's just showing, basically it's showing the same thing up in both of those. So that's a way that you can kind of go in, you can display all that information and make sure that everybody has access to the right kind of data there. Okay. So if I come down here and I click next, I can go ahead and if I want to change the title on this, you can see that I can display the title and the subtitle. In this case, it's the radiation level. Basically, all I have to do is come in here and just put in something like current value, and it automatically changes whatever I wanted to be able to display up there. Okay. Even if I need to be able to create a custom link, I can go ahead and do something along those lines. Once I've done that, I can simply click apply. And now it's going to show that information, and it's streaming data coming straight across. If you notice, if you point to any one of the tiles in any of these dashboards, they all have these 3 dots up in the very top right. If I click that, again, these are different options that will automatically show up. So for example, you'll notice about, let's say I come over here and I point to this. If I want to be able to open this in what's called focus mode, what this will do is it will now take up the entire area. So now I'm just going to go ahead and show the information in a line chart that's coming straight across. Okay. And again, it makes it a little bit easier to go ahead and display all this. It typically will show the last refresh, but because it's coming straight across, I don't really have to worry about that. But you can do that also with every dashboard as well. You'll be able to see the last time it was refreshed right up at the top and be able to display that. And then once I'm done, I can simply come back up here, click exit focus mode, and be able to display that. Okay. All right. So what kind of questions do you have on all of this? Okay. All right. What I am, again, that's basically the content that I have for you for today. What I'm going to do very quickly is go ahead and turn this back over to Brandon. He's going to give you a little bit more information, but I'd like to thank everybody personally for coming in. I hope you got something out of this other than a headache. Again, if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer them for you. But for my part, anyway, again, stick around for Brandon. For my part, I'd like to wish you all the best of luck. I hope to work with you again.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. If everyone can go ahead and just put some applause as a reaction or say thank you in the chat. We so appreciate you, Jeff, for this past hour of information. I do see a question that I can answer about how do we access the recording. Within a couple weeks, we will have the recording on our website under the library. So you can go ahead and look at it there. But yes, we did record, so that way we can go ahead and go back and watch it. So after you leave today, there will be a survey that once you exit the Zoom room, it will pop up for you. It's asking if you would like to continue the conversation. What that means is if you want to be able to learn more about what New Horizons has to offer, if you're like, you know what, this hour was great learning about Power BI, but I think I could benefit from taking a class or whatever that may be, go ahead and say yes, that you would like to continue the conversation. We can get you connected with an account executive to be able to discuss further what your needs are and how we can support you in your personal and professional development. So we appreciate you all so much. If you have any last questions, Jeff is able to answer them at this time. But if not, thank you all so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks again, everybody. Take care.